we thought we were out, young adult movie adaptations pull us back in. You're watching Beyond the Trailers review of Divergent.
Divergents threaten the system. It won't be safe until they're removed.
She's gonna kill me.
We have to be ready for anything.
The world is changing. You'll have to decide who you're loyal to.
All of my life, I've lived by your rules. Not anymore.
Yes, it was beginning to seem like Twilight and the Hunger Games were anomalies. Ender's Game, Mortal Instruments, The Host, Beautiful Creatures, I Am Number 4, even Percy Jackson. They all failed to make their mark at the box office. And for a while, it seemed Divergent would join them, as despite intense media coverage, it didn't seem to have any traction. Yet it appears that, like Triss, it's simply been hiding in plain sight. Suddenly, industry tracking shows that Divergent is set to open with almost 70 million. And while that's no Hunger Games, it's on par with the first Twilight, and way beyond the debuts of all those other young adult adaptations that tanked. Is Shailene Woodley the new Jennifer Lawrence? A story her management team and Lionsgate Summit recently tried to float in a cover story for The Hollywood Reporter. Perhaps, yet Lawrence already had an Oscar nomination and a blockbuster under her belt by the time the first Hunger Games hit theaters. Woodley only scored a Golden Globe nomination for The Descendants, and The Spectacular Now wasn't spectacular at the box office. Yet while Woodley is set to star in another fan-favorite book adaptation, The Fault in Our Stars, allow me to float another theory. Theo James, aka the Heartthrob Factor. As you might recall, there was Team Edward and Team Jacob, but no Team Bella. And while it's been something of an uphill battle, fans have been trying to swoon over Josh Hutcherson's Peeta, which got a little easier after Catching Fire, where he seems to have finally grown into the role. Plus all those other movies that flopped, no hot guy. So while James, who first made headlines as the Turk on Downton Abbey, he's actually half Greek, might not be getting a lot of media attention for Divergent, he might also be the movie's secret weapon. It is Theo James! You should have heard the tween girls in my theater squeal with delight when he first appeared on screen, and you'll probably hear them in your own theater if you choose to see this movie, which I think you should because it's surprisingly good, which I'll get to in a moment, but I really want to talk about Theo James first, because not only did these tween girls squeal with delight the first, second, and third time, basically for the entire movie when he was on screen, but when I was leaving, I overheard one tween girl turn to her friend and say, "Oh my God, you have no idea the hours of interviews with Theo James I've watched online already." So while it looks like he is indeed this movie's secret weapon, I feel he's also its greatest liability. Not because of anything he does personally. Theo James is very good in the film, both on screen and off. He's very good as Four, and he's getting these twin girls into the theater, so he's doing his job. However, where this is a problem is the age difference, the very clear age difference between him and Shailene Woodley. It's 7 years, and the result of that is that he looks like a fully fledged adult, and she looks like someone who is still very much a child. And the age difference is so big, and they seem to be at such different stages in their life, that I really did kind of find it disturbing when I was watching the film. And that's because what this movie is doing is creating a fantasy scenario where it's okay for a teacher to date a student, because that's what Four is. He's Triss's teacher, and when they have a romantic relationship, it really is unethical. And I worry about tween girls who see this film because boys their own age aren't going to look like Four. Four is considerably older than Triss. So if someone who does look like Four were to come up to them in a romantic capacity, not only would it be an unhealthy relationship, but there's something wrong with an adult man who wants to date a girl who's clearly a child. And I think so. I think this movie kind of sends out a bad message in that regard. And I hope that, parents kind of try and head this off at the pass, being like, this is not a good relationship, and well, I guess it's working out for Triss. She really shouldn't be dating Four either. It looks inappropriate. I felt very much so. Also, just to get out the other flaw of the movie out of the way right away. I think they need to find more young actors, because the movie seemed a bit incestuous, where Shailene Woodley has been in movies where she had romantic relationships with both the actor playing the bully here, Miles Teller, and then also she has a movie coming up The Fault in Our Stars, where she's romantically interested in the actor playing her brother here. So I guess there's only a limited pool of talent, but they need to then search harder, because there's plenty of talent out there that Hollywood hasn't tapped, and sadly sometimes will never tap. And there's room for them with all these teen movies they're making. I mean, we don't want to have like a theater company where it's like, oh, today I'm your brother, tomorrow I'm your lover. It's just kind of bizarre. So I think that's another problem with the film. But those are the only two problems. It's really a casting issue in both cases. Someone being way too old, and then also not enough variety in Hollywood in the young adult, talent pool. But otherwise, this film, as I said, is surprisingly good. It's much better than the first Twilight, and I even think it's much better than the first Hunger Games. This movie is really steady on its feet, and I'm actually surprised they're replacing the creative team behind the camera. If you want to find out more about Insurgent, the sequel, which is I think definitely going to happen, I'll put a link at the end of this video to a video I put up yesterday about that. But I guess Neil Burger really did want to leave because he does a very good job here as a director. But the screenwriting team, I wish they would stay on, because I think they also did a very nice job. Because, for instance, at first I thought this movie, I was like, oh look, it's just high school cliques with the stakes, higher stakes, and you've blown up a high school into an entire city. But as the movie continued and they talked about factions and how they related to humanity, both either whether or not the factions highlighted humanity's strengths or weaknesses, the movie started to become quite sophisticated. And I also really liked what it has to say about family. I like the family relationships that were depicted here, and I thought the roles of the parents, Tony Goldwyn and Ashley Judd, while small, really made an impression in their limited screen time. I really liked the way the parents are portrayed here in the film. The adults in general, I think the movie does a very good job. And the adults aren't just like, I think in these other, young adult movies, the adults are kind of very much removed, and they're all like stodgy, and they're like, I don't get you crazy kids, or you kids are too smart for me. Here, very much, the younger and older characters relate and interact almost at the same level. And I like what that says about, younger characters growing up and joining adults in society, and that when you join society, you all kind of get into the same game. I thought that was really great. Now, as for Shailene Woodley, I usually don't like Shailene Woodley. I think it's maybe Shailene Woodley. I don't like her usually, but here I thought she was very good. Not only in her performance, but also the way the role was written. And I was just talking the other day about how I wish that they had an every woman action hero. And here she is. Tris is brave without being, sarcastic, without having bravado, and she, the self-sacrifice that she has, and her caringness for other people, but yet still being strong herself, is really great. And I think they hit the perfect balance of, an action hero who happens to be a woman. And I think that, while I usually don't think that should be factored in at all, obviously, and I don't know how much it is here. I mean, I think it's more Tris's humanity which is factored in, which I think some Hollywood screenwriters would say would be her femininity, but I think a movie like this is very smart, and it realizes that we all have our softer side, which I really like. But that doesn't mean we lose our strength. Really thought that was fantastic. Oh yes, also, I just have my notes here. Also, I felt that, I know a lot of people are unhappy with the way this series ends in the books, and I heard the spoiler. I don't want to give it away here, but I will say that based on what happens in this movie, I think that what happens at the end to Tris makes perfect sense. I think it's actually quite poetic. So we'll see how it plays out through the films, but I can see where the author is going there. So I'm actually, interested to see that unfold. The other actress I really liked in this movie was Zoe Kravitz, another person who's never really clicked for me on screen. I think the biggest role she's really had to date was in X-Men First Class, and that was not a big role. But she was great here. She was like a little Ellen Page, and she was adorable. I loved the clothes, all the clothes. Everybody's clothes here are pretty cool. I really liked it, and I liked the way they separated the factions. I don't think I would ever last in Dauntless. I thought that was really funny. I was like, I'm going to get cut for sure if I was in there. I mean, I have no upper body strength. But I thought it was fun, and that was kind of became a fun game. Like, who would I join? I decided, by the way, I would join Candor. But although I had a hard time telling Candor and Erudite apart a lot of the time, they seemed kind of, thank God Erudite wore blue and Candor wore black and white, and I love black and white. But it was very hard to tell them apart in terms of what they did. And I thought that I would think that Candor would think they should run things, not Erudite. And so that was like weird to me. But anyway, you can see how much this movie sucked me into its universe. But I really liked it. As for the male characters, guys out there might be wondering, is there anything here for me? And I would say to you, I don't know. Because the male characters, while well realized, were mostly eye candy. Surprisingly so. Almost every guy in this movie was attractive. But I don't know if guys are going to like this film, or at least as much as women will. So I'd be curious, guys, if you've read the books, what did the books have for you that maybe I'm not seeing in the movie? Or do you just appreciate a good story here? Do you think the story's that good that you can look past the fact that there aren't any real key male characters here? Because I think 4 is very much a love interest. So anyway, I like this movie. I think this franchise is definitely going to continue. So I say take a chance on it. Get on the bandwagon now, because it's always more fun to be on these things when they begin. So thank you for tuning into my review, and you can check out some more episodes right now.